Welcome to another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. Today I'm happy to present Darryl Anunciado from Action Drone. We'll get to hear from Darryl as to how he started Action Drone, what he's went through, and how he almost burned his house down. So let's get started with Darryl Anunciado. Welcome to another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. Thank you so much to the viewers, to the audience. This is a video as well as an audio version. If you're listening or watching, you can listen to it in your car, working out at the gym and whatnot. Today I have the pleasure of having Darryl Anunciado with me. In 2003, he was at a banking institution. And then in the mid-2000s, he switched over to the real estate agencies and he delved in real estate. And then he founded Action Drone in 2013. So welcome so much, Darryl, for agreeing to this interview, for coming over here, for allowing us into your lab space. So I'm gonna cede you the honor of presenting and running down of who you are and where you started from in 2003 as a banker and where Action Drone actually comes in.
Yeah, so I know a lot of people in this industry, they usually have some sort of aerospace background or engineering background, right? Yeah. I come from an undergrad degree with psychology. Okay. When I graduated in college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So, but what I did was I graduated and basically thought, hey, what's the fastest way to make money and where's the money located? And so it was in banking. Okay. And so I looked for jobs in banking. Okay. Definitely, was not my thing. I did it for 7 or 8 years. It was actually a pretty long time how long I did it.
So at that time you were just looking for the fastest way to make money.
Okay. And so, but it was, I could tell that I wasn't really passionate about it. Ever since high school, I've always been into aviation. I remember being in high school, I enrolled in Young Eagle group in Brownfield, and they introduced me to flying. And so that was kind of like my taste of flying. And so, but I tried to pursue that in college. But basically, in the Air Force, you have to have like a perfect vision, and 2020 right? To be able to, be a pilot.
Yeah, there's certain limits that you have to fall under before they even consider making you a pilot.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
And I try as much as I can to get an exception. But they wouldn't have it.
It wouldn't budge.
Yeah, so I did 3 years of ROTC, Air Force ROTC, to try to get my wings.
Well, you were in high school.
Well, in college.
Oh, in college.
Yeah, and then once I got out, I basically didn't know what to do, and so that's why I landed banking. Did it for 8 years. Really got tired of it. In 2008, actually 2007, before the crash, I quit banking, and then I took a break for 2 years, and I used all my savings to figure out what I wanted to do. Okay. So
when you say all your savings, how much are we talking about back in 2008?
I mean, I didn't have that much money, but basically I lived off. Well, my wife had a job, so I lived off like my wife's income, and I tried to figure out what I wanted to do until I ran out of money. And so at that point,
What ventures did you explore at that time?
It
could be whatever. But
it was. I mean, one of them was I designed an app, basically so that instead of how in Craigslist you look for things and then
you flip them,
you buy them or something like that. Right. But what I wanted to do, or in eBay, right? People bid. Right, for items. Yeah. I wanted to reverse an idea where, let's say you needed an oil change. So you would put that, it's like, I need an oil change, and everyone in that certain zip code will bid for your work.
Oh, I see.
So the business, it's like reverse, where you're the person that is now of interest, and the business will bid for your business.
So it's kind of reverse idea of, hey, I need this service performed. Yeah. Whoever has the skill. I mean, you might not have an established brick and mortar type of, motor shop or whatever, and you come into my house or I go to you, we meet up, we make an agreement, I do the oil change, I give you cash on hand, and then off you go.
The idea was for young entrepreneurs that can't have a brick and mortar, or could only do like one or two side jobs here.
Right.
It was a way for them to get into business.
Right. Okay. It's kind of like an Uber.
Yeah.
Right.
But for jobs.
For
certain jobs, for skill sets, labor skills. Yeah. So it could have been like mowing your lawn or something like that.
Okay, that's cool. And then you delved into other things.
Yeah, and then I even did. I actually ended up just running out of money, because what was happening was I tried to do things that were way too fast, way too big, and it was more driven by like, how can I make money? It was always my mindset. How can I make money? And so as soon as I ran out of money, I had to look for a job.
Right.
And when we moved here in the East Lake area, basically I looked for the closest job where I could just walk to work. Yeah, and it was property management.
You didn't want to commute. That was not for you.
No, okay. Because I did that. In banking, I did wholesale banking, and so I had to commute to Temecula. And one thing that I've learned is that time is more valuable than money. Right. And so
it's
if
a commodity.
It is a commodity. Right. It's like it's the most priceless commodity.
Right.
And so if I'm driving an hour, and basically that whole hour I'll never be able to buy back.
You never get it back.
I'm driving to Temecula so I could make like $100. How's that even worth it? And
gas.
Gas, your time,
tear and wear for your car, maintenance. So that kind of washes out anyway.
Right. So, and so the property management job gave me a lot of free time. Basically, that free time, after 5, I would end up like basically figuring out like what my hobbies would be, what I actually like doing.
Okay.
So I couldn't afford becoming a pilot.
Okay.
Because then I researched, like, hey, how do you become a pilot privately?
Right.
And I was like, oh, it costs $10,000.
Right. Yeah, it's like, pilot school is expensive, right?
Yeah, it's not cheap. And I was like, well, I don't have that money.
Right.
So I was like, what's the closest thing? So I asked my wife to basically buy me RC toys.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she give you Christmas presents.
Yeah.
Every so often. Okay,
she's like, here you go. You can be a pilot.
There you go. You can be a pilot. Control it. Yeah,
right.
There you go.
And so, I mean, like, there's a little bit more to that. I gave her a choice. It's like, hey, either buy me a piano, because, it's like, hey, I'll just get into music.
Oh, so you play the piano too?
No, I don't. I wanted to learn how to play the piano. I really needed something that I really like. And I love music, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And so I was like, hey, I want to make music. Can you buy me a piano?
Right.
And she goes, that's so expensive. I was like, fine, buy me an RC airplane.
Right.
So she chose
a couple $100 here and there.
It was either $1,000 for a piano or like $150 for the RC airplane.
Right. So she made a wiser choice that kind of turned into a different venture.
Right.
That made you money now.
Exactly.
So
and so that RC airplane got me hooked into developing basically.
So when she starts buying you the RC airplanes, and you're at home, you come after work, and you start meddling with it.
Yeah.
Was 3D printing a thing?
No, there's no 3D printers.
There's no 3D printers.
I mean, if 3D printers would have like really be awesome for that time.
Been. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you start learning how to fly it, getting more expertise at it, and then all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, well, what if I swap this? What if I do this? What if I modify it? What if I do that? Right? And you and I started talking, and you said that you started showing off in Facebook of all things.
That's it.
Of the modifications that you did, and hey, I can do this now, et cetera, et cetera. And people started noticing.
Yeah, and I mean, all it was like, hey, look at this new construction. So the property management company I worked for, they were doing construction.
Okay.
And so I took that airplane and I flew with a camera. And then I basically said, hey, look, we can now inspect construction, blah, blah, blah.
Aerial view.
Right. And then my manager at that time, she was like, there's so much vibration, it's giving me a headache, right?
Because it was shaking
You're
so
shaking,
much, and you see the feed, and then you're like, okay.
Yeah, so the trick was I would fly the airplane, when the motors are on, it's vibrating, and then I would like shut off the engine, so I let it glide so there's no vibration, right?
Wow.
So that's how I was able to capture the image. But then my friend, a couple of my friends on Facebook, I don't know them in person, but it's just people like...
You started connecting.
Yeah, I started connecting with people that understand like aviation and stuff It's like, hey, why don't you create this gimbal? Okay. And I was like, and then they would send me a link. It's like, this is what other people are doing.
Wow, so they give you the idea of creating it. So when you started creating those little pieces, how did you didn't have a shop at that time? Was it just in your garage? Did you actually come up with the idea and go to a metal fab shop and say, hey, can you build this for me? Did you go to a friend that works in cars and say, hey, can you weld this piece for me? I need it fixed. A fixture to put a camera in there, whatever, for an isolation of vibration?
Well, everything I did it all in my room.
Okay.
Right. So at home. So I had a spare room. That spare room was meant for video games, and that's where
it was your man cave.
Right. It was my man cave. Okay. It was supposed to be where my piano would be.
Okay. Yeah.
But instead, I ended up putting a table with soldering irons and
oh my God.
all that
so
stuff.
It turned into a workshop.
Yeah, it turned into a workshop.
Really?
Yeah.
What did your wife start saying when that started happening?
Well, she wasn't happy because, the solder smoke is like not the healthiest thing.
Right.
And then I also had all these batteries lying around. Okay. And she was just like, how safe are these things? So
biohazards.
Yeah, it was all that stuff, right? And then, you're like,
is this OSHA
not
safe?
OSHA compliant, not like nothing like that. Right. And then basically, for me, like I couldn't really manufacture things. So what I did is I went to like CNC shops here in Chula Vista, and I was like, hey, can you fabricate this for me?
So you started connecting with
I'd walk in
local community shops, and you started saying, hey, this is what I'm doing. I need this support. And then they welcome you in, gave you some ideas.
Some ideas, but then, it was at a point where the CNC shops here, they can't just do ones or twos.
Right. And
it was super expensive. So luckily for me, I grew up with a bunch of international friends. And so my friend from Hong Kong was like, hey, Darryl, we have a CNC friend here that could...
Over in Hong Kong?
Yeah. Okay. Could fabricate it.
So now you're going international.
Yeah. Without even trying, right?
Okay.
And so I basically I said, hey, I want it to look like this.
Right. And then, so you sketched up an idea, napkin idea.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And I still do that.
That's cool.
Yeah, the designs downstairs, they all start from napkins.
Right.
Now
cool.
notebooks.
Talking on a coffee table, you start drawing something conceptual, and then you send it over, and they start drafting it up, giving it dimension, real tangible ideas, then they turn it into a 3D model and they manufacture. That's awesome. So all of this is taking place, but it's just a hobby. It was a hobby.
It was for fun.
Okay. It was still for fun.
I mean, because what it was I was trying to solve problems that people are telling me.
Right.
And so, the GoPro one just came out. And so I was like, all right, how can I put this GoPro one so I have perfect video all the time?
Right.
And so that's when it was like, hey, airplanes can't hover. So what is out there right now that is actually new? And so people were building these quadcopters, and there weren't really like good flight controllers back then. So majority of us were flying modified boards, right? To actually put a flight control code in there.
Okay.
And so once that happened, basically,
so you yourself were also learn how to code.
No, I did not want to touch the coding aspect of it because that's like a whole new dimension of like mindset. Okay. And so what I did was connect with the right engineers.
Oh, I see. So you started using and pulling those connections to, hey, can you make this mod in the program and then put it into the system, make it do this?
Yeah, that's it. I've learned from the beginning that there is no way I can do what I wanted to. Yeah.
That's cool.
So I started making friends here and there, and some of those friends are now good friends of mine that are actually in the industry, and we still collaborate.
So for a brief period of time, this was just a hobby. All of a sudden, Action Drone comes to light.
Yeah.
How did that idea, and at what point did you say, okay, I'm going to develop a company, and I'm going to call it Action Drone? And where does the name Action Drone actually come?
So basically, we developed the first prototype, which is this AD1. This is number one right here.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so is this the actual prototype?
Yeah, this is the actual not the first prototype, but this is the actual prototype for production.
Okay.
And so when we were able to create the gimbal where we could mount the first GoPro, then on Facebook, I had 5 people offer to buy it.
Really?
Yeah.
On Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that same guys I know in Hong Kong, basically what I did was like, hey man, let me purchase 5 materials to build 5.
Okay.
And so what I did was I got I didn't have money, so I got a American Express credit card, opened an account.
Right.
They gave me $3,000.
Right.
So I maxed that out and bought materials.
Right.
Action Drone came from.
And you were still at home.
I was still at home.
That was your shop.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was no business license yet.
Okay. You were doing this as a hobby, and it started. People want to buy this from me. How do I get the money to fund the manufacturing portion?
Right.
Buying material, and then where do I build it?
Right.
And it's just Darryl.
Right.
It's not like you have a payroll. You don't have employees. I'm like, how do I do this? And I have a delivery date because they obviously want it fast, right?
Right. They wanted it quick.
How did you finagle all of that?
Well, I just tell them, it's like, hey, look, I got order of 5, and so it'll take me 30 days, which now I think about it, was like crazy. I don't know why I said 30 days.
Okay, you just a round number.
Yeah, I just said
give me a month and I'll give it to you.
Right, I had no experience, right? So, I mean, the first drones I built, and I would build them so fast because I was so into it. Right. I wouldn't sleep. I would just build the whole night and then, then fly, all the first prototypes and all that. I did all that. And so, once I got the order, I was like, I could do it in 30 days. I'm sure the material will take a week and so. Right. And then another week to build the 5, which was ridiculous now. Okay. But then once the order came in, it actually, the 3,000 turned into $15,000, right? Because I sold it for $3,000 each or something like that. And then I put that money back into the company and built more drones to sell.
So you reinvested into the company.
Yeah.
So once you did that, how many times did you do it? And then you said, I'm going to go and open up a business.
So it wasn't that I wanted to get out of my room, because I was doing well there. I had no overhead. I was just selling drones. The overhead was the material cost.
Right. That was just the inventory of material, right?
But then I almost burnt down the house.
I guess your wife wasn't really happy about that, right?
No. So
was that with the soldering iron? Or
it was the
electrical short, or what
one of the batteries exploded.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. It got too hot, and the chemicals inside made a reaction.
Right. So it did a thermal runaway and basically exploded right where I was charging it, and the whole wall on the side was just.
Were you home when this happened?
I was home.
Did you have a fire?
Yes, thank goodness I had a fire extinguisher.
Right there in your workshop.
In my workshop.
Just because of that.
Because
Oh wow.
And so basically that next day she.
Was your wife home when this happened?
Yeah, we were watching. We were watching. I didn't know how batteries are such a dangerous thing. While I was charging, I was watching TV or something.
Okay.
We shouldn't be doing that, right?
You should not leave.
You should unattended. Right? Yeah, but I didn't know.
Okay. You didn't know any better. It's my
I didn't know any
home.
better.
Yeah, there's no regulations.
Right.
I'm here. I'm the owner.
Right.
Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah. So the next week, my brother, who is also one of the founders now, basically said, Darryl, you need to get out of your house and go look for a place. But this is towards a year later. Okay. So this is a year of me building drones and selling and all that stuff.
So you're getting in the business, you're finding people, making connections, getting that reputation built up because your product is actually performing well.
It was.
And you have a year of history.
Yeah.
And people can say, hey, you're doing a really good product. Word of mouth goes, and then you open up shop.
I had
to. Is this office, this lab space, the original?
This is the second office. The original.
Where did you actually start?
Yeah, it's actually just down the street.
Just down the street.
Yes.
So it's in Otay, East Lake area.
No, it's just walking distance.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, just right there.
Okay.
Yeah, so what it was is it was a garage type where it didn't have air conditioning or heat. So in the winter it was super cold, and then the summer is super hot. Okay. And so
no insulation whatsoever.
No insulation. Okay. So we lasted there about a year. I think the one thing that really made us move out was during the summer our sweat would be dripping on the boards, and that basically
that damaged the internal electrical components. Okay.
Yeah. So we stopped, and then we moved here. This was about 5 years now here. Yeah.
Okay, 5 years.
Or 4 years, yeah.
Okay, so now that once you move into this space, you obviously start expanding. How many employees do you have up to this point?
We have 13 total in San Diego.
13 total.
Yeah, and we're about to grow about...
And they all work off of this location, or some of them are remote?
So some of them don't, for example, the financial manager can work remotely. But during at least once or twice a week.
They show up.
They show up
Okay, they
for
come
all
to
the
the
meetings and the updates and all that stuff. So same thing with the business development group,
right.
and then sales. They don't need to be here.
Your background is financial, so you understand a little bit. You understand about money and how it works, so you kind of understand what the financial aspect of it is. But the business aspect, the CEO, everything logistically.
Yeah.
Did you take any courses, or are you learning as you go and you start saying, hey, get feedback from your employees, mistakes that you're doing, you're like, okay, I got to learn from that and never do it again or modify it. What's been the biggest mistake or the biggest learning opportunity lesson that you've had so far?
So I was actually really lucky. I did get my master's in business, and I was not intern, but taken on as a wing my last year by one of my professor who was really good businessman. I mean, he was a retired businessman where their company owned trading tuna and cotton and stuff like that, and tea to India, England, and globally. And so he taught me the most basic stuff, like just be a problem solver. If you solve problems, you're gonna make money. And so that's basically it. But there's a lot of mistakes that I've made that became like a lesson learned here, right?
Can you share with us?
A lot of it is
biggest one that comes to mind.
The biggest one is usually it comes to like strategies, right? So before that, I used to love talking about like every success that I've made in this business. And then what ended up happening was that then I see a lot of companies doing the same exact thing, and I didn't create a barrier to entry so that every competition can just do exactly what I do. So now I don't do that. A lot of our work, the only thing I actually showcase in social media or in marketing is when I know that there's a huge barrier to entry to compete against us. So I don't like showcase or show off at all. And we're very low-key type company, and majority of our customers are now just word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Yeah.
So you don't really advertise, not too much marketing.
No, not too much marketing. Yeah.
Okay. What are your customers like now? Is it independent owned businesses? Is it government agencies? Can you kind of talk about that?
It's mostly government agencies.
Government agencies.
And most of them, have three-letter word government agencies. We also deal with international government.
International governments. And you mentioned earlier that you are doing something with international Japan. You just brought in a couple of their individuals for the Japanese government, similar to what FEMA would do, to have a drone and learn how to control it. And this drone, you manufactured and you created here, and you're just doing essentially a pilot school.
Right? So, I mean, that's really kind of like what majority of our work here. We help integrate industrial drones into workspace or groups or government entities that are trying to implement drones into their field of work, right? So, and interesting enough, when I first moved out of my room, I was still working at that property management job. And our first customer to actually come and visit us for drone training, which was about 5 years ago, was a Japanese company. Right, and yesterday we just finished training the Japanese government entity.
How many people came in that group? 2, 3?
2. Well, they're basically, they sent their first experts in to evaluate the training, and then they'll come in more and more and more.
Okay, awesome. How long did it take you from the design concept to actually the iteration that you're selling right now of that drone?
Probably, I would say close to 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, because it's us. We basically all we did was play with technology, right? We call it play, but at some point we figure out like what we want to do, what we want in it, and how we want it to operate. And that's how we design it. And then we look for the technologies that are available out there so that it reflects exactly what we've developed for the past 3 years.
So what you're doing here is not necessarily readily available in the market by somebody else. You tailor you tailor it to whatever the customer asks and whatever requirements you see.
Yeah.
I also saw, and this is available public knowledge, that you're working on drones that are driving or flying themselves at 99 miles per hour or so, and that you're looking for ideas of what to do with that.
Right. I mean,
so you're innovating because this is fun, this is cool, and you're pushing the limits of what you can do.
Yeah.
But do you have any goals in mind? I mean, do you already have anything in mind?
So, I mean, our goal is to be one of the industrial drone companies that are servicing every sector or every vertical, right? So that's energy, oil, let's just say all energy, GIS, government entities, maybe law enforcement here and there. That's technically our goal. But for us, we've discovered that if we constantly have fun and develop things that are fun for us, we tend to develop something that are actually pretty useful to others.
Right.
So that's really all we do. Like, besides the fact that we service the industry, we service the industry because they asked us or they see us or they find something useful that we've done.
Okay.
So what we do is we just create new things, and then we basically get people interested in giving us suggestion actually on how they can use the drone.
Right.
So
from the public.
From the public.
Right.
And so like my last posting on LinkedIn, I basically said, hey, this drone can do this.
Right.
What are some creative ideas?
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's the same exact thing that I do all the time. I let people give me ideas.
Right.
And some of their ideas are really good.
Right. So you mentioned the energy sector as well as the DoD and as well as international customers. So with the energy, can you kind of tell us what type of usage you've seen with them?
So right now we're experimenting on automated wind turbine inspection.
Okay.
With our partnership, our company is actually, we started what we call a drone global alliance.
Right.
So we look at other labs out there around the world that have technology that we could bring to the United States and actually implement in the industry. Okay. And one of the cool things that we've seen so far is a company that developed a companion computer for our drone so that it basically just flies and looks at a wind turbine and automatically scans it.
Yeah. What are you scanning for?
Fractures and
damage
faults
to the actual blades.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it even looks at like how much dust is now on the blade.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, you can get that fine of a detail.
Yeah, because the cameras are 51 megapixels.
So now, with this, before they actually used the drones, it had to be a human that actually went out there, a crew, had to climb up or stop the the turbine, and then climb up however many stories high, endanger themselves, and go out and make sure that the blades were not damaged, make sure that everything was okay. How much time does that save the energy sector?
So to give you an idea, not that I'm not like a super expert on wind turbine inspection, but from what they are telling us is that most of the time it takes about the whole day to actually inspect the 3 blades of one wind turbine. Okay. Our drones can do it in 15 minutes.
In 15 minutes?
Yeah,
One tower?
Yeah, in 15 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
So you can scan about 20 in the span of about 4 hours or something like that. Wow.
So it saves them a lot of time.
Saves a lot of time and a lot of money,
a
lot of personnel, safety hazards and whatnot. That's incredible.
And back then when they would actually rappel down, so they would climb and then rope down, they can't take pictures, it's too close and the blade's too big. So what they do is they take notes. Right. While our pictures are 51 megapixels, we could see every single detail.
And you zoom in and get a clear vision of what you're doing. So let me go back and ask you this question. From the inception of Action Drone up to now, has the mission changed and the vision of what you're doing, or has it kind of just morphed into something else?
It's always been the same.
It's always been the same.
Which is let's have fun.
Okay, that's cool. That's awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, we've realized that we are the most efficient way of developing things is by having fun.
Okay.
And for us, our customers, they see that.
Right.
and they tend to work with us because they also want to have fun.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what's been the biggest surprise from creating Action Drone and following your passion and having fun? What's been the biggest surprise or the coolest project that you never imagined that you would be able to work?
Well, the coolest stuff I can't really talk about, right? But the biggest surprise is being I guess a lot of people that I would never thought would ask for advice. They ask us for like how to, like what we should do or how we should do it.
Is this somebody or like an entity you can name and say, hey, this office, governmental office came by and asked for our opinion? And I was like, really?
Right. I mean, that's how it is. I get regular like meetings now to help develop. Basically, one of them would be like, how do we develop the drone industry for the United States? Things like that. And I'm pretty involved with a lot of like growth, or try to get involved in so much of like how we can grow the industry, not just by my company, but the other companies out there that are trying to grow. And,
I also saw you had a collaboration with a couple of the other San Diego-based companies, drone companies here, and you are starting to make a symposium essentially of collaboration and exchanging ideas.
Yeah.
Can you touch on that a little bit?
So
who was the person that came up with that idea, and what's the objective of that?
Well, similar to my history, right? I mean, I couldn't have done Action Drone by myself. Okay. And so so the same concept, I'm bringing it to San Diego, where I basically gathered them about two and a half years ago. I gathered all the CEOs of all the drone companies, the small drone companies here in San Diego, and I pitched to them that we create a consortium. And the goal of the consortium is to find contracts out there and to see if we could actually go after contracts that we would not be able to do unless we partnered with other technological companies. And so when we started that, it started working. Now a lot of the companies in there, basically now we have a shared contract.
When you were doing that initially, 2 years ago, go back 2 years ago, when you first pick up the phone and say, hey, CEO of X company, my name is Darryl, I'm from Action Drone. Are you interested in this consortium? Did you find any hesitation, resistance from some of them? And obviously some of them said, yeah, that's an awesome idea. I kind of was thinking about the same thing, so let's do it together. Have you experienced any obstacles?
I always get that.
Okay.
And I don't really care.
Right.
Yeah,
okay. So you just follow your idea, follow through.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. I mean, people that came and are not members of it, then they're not the type of companies we want to work with anyways.
I see. Okay.
So luckily for me at that point, Action Drone's a little bit more influential in terms of getting things done.
What do you think that is?
I don't know.
What do you think Action Drone is more influential or has more of a pull?
I wouldn't say more of a pull, but I mean, I think it's because we share successes, and so it's not like if we get a contract and we know that it's not for us, we pass it along. Oh, and at some point, because we're sharing, people tend to want to work with us. Okay. And I use that to see if I can actually even do more where the sharing comes back also. Okay. And it really definitely has.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Right.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I invited you to an activity called Noche de Ingeniería at local high schools here in Chula Vista, Chula Vista area. And you graciously accepted and you went to the first one, and then I invited you again to a second one and you again graciously accepted. And off of that, something really cool that you just told me a couple minutes ago happened. Can you kind of go into that?
Well, I mean, I always like to, one of my goals is to see if I can entice the next generation to do the best they can, right? And also to figure out what they like to do. Right. And when you invited me to your event, I didn't really expect much except for, like give some anecdote here and there and motivate the younger generation. Yeah. But what I've found out is that your group or that group has a lot of very smart kids.
Right.
And I'm just amazed by some of their honesty of like what they've done.
Right.
And it kind of like resonated with me. It's like, hey, these guys have good personalities and they're smart.
Right.
And so as a company, we're because we're growing, we've also realized that there's not like a major, right? It's like you can't major in drone, right?
Yeah,
there's no, I mean, you can major in aerospace engineering, but even in that sector, there's not a lot of like, hey, you would specialize in drones,
right?
And so what I've found out is that there's so many of your members that were actually into aerospace engineering or some sort of engineering, and then started even being part of a club that dealt with drones.
Right.
So it was almost like a perfect location for me to like harness that and develop their skill set.
Yeah.
And so at some point, one of the kids just said, "Hey, they just reached out and sent their resume."
Off of that event, they made the connection, they followed through, they gave you a call or sent you an email saying, hey, we met at this event, and they sent you a resume, you looked at it, and then they're going to be interns at your company, right?
Yep, they're going to be interns
awesome.
Here, yeah.
So that leads me to another question. You're expanding, and drones, action drones, it's actually creating jobs for the job market here in San Diego.
Yeah, that's
so. What do you see? How do you see the drone technology developing and adding value to this area in particular?
So the way I've always designed the technology is not to take jobs. So although the interns they'll be aerospace engineers, well, what I've always done is, hey, this is the directive. We need to create a technology so that when we give this to anybody, even if they don't have, the highest end education, let's say they're from another country, this will help them create jobs. This will help them improve their life. And so we've tested it so that we can actually train somebody, if they're just really interested in it, they can use this technology to create a business. And so we've seen people where we actually help them start their own do it yourself type business. And they'll offer services. We've done it in Africa where somebody just started their own drone company. We had them come here and we actually trained them for 3 days. They were
looking at agricultural fields and whatnot, right?
And then all of a sudden,
the crops are growing, what's going on.
And that's exactly what it is. And now he's teaching the next generation, men, women, to actually use this technology to create their own business. Now it becomes a livelihood for them.
So you're not just creating jobs in the local area that you're in, you're creating jobs worldwide, essentially.
That's really the goal. I mean, our goal is to create processes that people can replicate anywhere, use our technology, and then they can see that, hey, this guy is making, $400 a wind turbine inspection. So some guy from like Ecuador who's got wind turbines over there can now charge $400 of the same exact job. And most of the time, because the contracts are from the same company, they're equalizing the pay.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
So that's one of our main goals, is to actually try to help, people get a better job without having to spend so much money on getting their master's or PhD, right?
I've know that Chula Vista has an FAA space permit.
Yes.
That's something that's not very common throughout the counties. How were you instrumental in getting some of that? Were you involved in that portion? Was that already set when you kind of jumped into the drone business?
So the city, before that even happened, I've already asked them to see if we could use a piece of land. And so the city of Chula Vista said, hey, this university land isn't being used. And so
university land.
Yeah, what they call university land. And so we've been using that as our test site, and that's also where we train people. Eventually it evolved because the city saw that an industry might come here, which is the drone industry. And so they pushed for the IPP. I wouldn't say I'm instrumental because I didn't do any of the paperwork.
I see.
Yeah, so they did a lot of that stuff, but we were the first company to ever
to
use
benefit and make use of it and prove the concept.
Yeah.
So you mentioned IPP. What does that stand for?
It's it's like an integration program so that the United States can integrate drones into the airspace.
Okay.
So what they do is take the data that they get from the group and they could see like how well drones should be integrated into the airspace.
Okay.
Now our Texas facility actually is also another city. So there's only 9 cities in the United States
that have that.
Yeah, and
IPP.
we're in the 2 of the cities.
Okay, so you brought up a good sideway over there. Texas. So you're in Chula Vista, and you've been growing Action Drone. Now you're expanding, so you're moving. What prompted you to actually move over to Texas?
We're not moving to Texas. This will stay here.
Or expanding.
Expanding. Yeah.
Yes.
We don't say move because Chula Vista doesn't want us to move, right?
Understood. Yeah, I mean for obvious reasons.
Right. And so we're not moving. We're just expanding our manufacturing there, and then also our training.
Okay.
The reason why is because the state of Texas wants to also develop their own drone industry.
I see.
And so they provided us with a location that is really perfect for training and manufacturing.
Okay, awesome. That kind of leads me into the next question of San Francisco has the Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And before the Silicon Valley it was, fields of agriculture and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then technology companies started growing there. Where do you see the drone industry taking off in? Do you see Chula Vista being a hub, San Diego potentially being a hub for that type of technology?
Yes, if Chula Vista really fosters the drone industry, then this would be the centerpiece of the drone industry itself.
What would you like to see the city and the government of Chula Vista, or in that matter, the county of San Diego, to push for and to actually foster that?
Basically, it's really difficult because it costs a lot of money, right? And so it's the drone industry. If you wanted to foster the drone industry, you need to create and you need to help create infrastructure for us to develop the industry itself, right? It would be like, just imagine me being a car manufacturer like Ford. And the government didn't pave roads. How will you sell cars if there are no roads?
Right.
That's the same thing with the drone industry. The city of Chula Vista needs to pave that road.
Right.
They did the IPP program, but that doesn't do much. Right. What we really need is infrastructure to help us train. I mean, when I was training the Japanese government, right?
You were doing it out on the field.
Right out of the field.
Right. Yeah.
Guess what? Some group of teenage kids driving their truck passing through us.
Oh, wow.
Like, how does that help me as a professional? Like,
it
doesn't. And then we had to wave them off because our drone was landing.
Oh, I see.
And now I'm endangering my product and my
crew,
customers,
the individuals,
and
the
then
customers.
the people that were trespassing.
I see.
Right, and so it's really scary, and that's one of the biggest reasons why we actually moved our training facility to Texas, because Texas gave us a 3-mile corridor, fenced out and secured.
Really? And that was one of the main reasons why you decided to expand over that way.
Yeah, training is
so does
dangerous.
that mean that a lot of the training that was happening here is now going to be performed in Texas?
It will be in Texas.
Is there going to be limited training here or no training at all?
It will be limited because we still have contracts with the state of California. And so anything California, we will do the training here. But if it's at a point where it's too big and we can't contain the safety aspect of it, then we'll bring it to Texas.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for answering all those questions. I'm going to ask a couple more questions that are not necessarily about Action Drone. But what is if you could choose any superpower, what would your superpower be?
It would be time traveling.
Time traveling. Yeah. Okay. Why would it be time traveling?
Because I'm like one of those really curious people.
You want to go into the future?
I want to go in the past.
You want to go in the past?
Yeah. Okay. The future, I mean, is interesting, but I want to talk to people like I look up to.
Who? And that leads me to another question, because who would you want to go talk to? And that could, right now you probably have read books or watched documentaries on those individuals, and they're essentially your mentor. Who would you go back and talk to? that you consider a mentor?
So Walt Disney.
Walt Disney.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What would you ask Walt Disney if you had the opportunity to go back?
I wouldn't ask. I would just kind of like shadow
For how long? A day?
forever. Like for as long as I can. Right. I mean, like the way he thinks, his visionary mindset, and then also, I mean, if you look at it, I really reflect a lot of our ideas. Based on like what he's done, right? He fostered like having fun, right? And so I foster having fun, and then he fosters innovation. I mean, if you look at Imagineering, like that's his idea.
Right.
I mean,
that's his concept.
Kind of the same concept. We're Imagineering aerospace.
Right.
Yeah. And so really, like, I mean, if you look at Disney now, their culture is based on Walt Disney's like lifestyle.
Right. The legacy that he left behind is based off of that idea of imagination, having innovation, and having fun along with it. And that's why Disneyland is perpetually full of people, right? Are you an annual pass holder?
My wife is.
Oh, she is?
Yeah. It's hard for me to be an annual pass holder because I'm traveling so much. But I am speaking at Orange County UAS. I'm what do you call it?
Advisor?
No, it's I guess the main speaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're the keynote speaker.
Keynote speaker,
yeah. For the drones?
It's the Orange County UAV Symposium.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
So awesome.
But they because it's like right next to Disneyland.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to Disneyland.
Take
a weekend off.
Additional day to go over there. Okay, awesome. Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoy it. Have you seen the Star Wars?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen anything at all. Yeah, it's been so long.
It's going to be an awesome experience. It's very interactive. The last one
I can't wait.
Made. Yep.
Yeah, my wife's been like this year alone. I think she's been there 3 times already.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how much she loves Disneyland.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
What is your definition of success? You've achieved quite a bit from working at a banking financial institution to delving into real estate to almost burning down your house and then making action drones. So what is your definition of success at this moment? Obviously, it could change in the future, but right now.
People always think is my level of happiness.
Level of happiness.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're feeling happy, content,
then
if you wake up and you have a smile on your face, you're good to go.
Yeah, I could be living in a tent, but if for some reason that makes me happy,
then that's the definition of success. You're being successful. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
If you could travel back in time, but not to meet Walt Disney.
Yeah.
If you could travel back in time and meet yourself when you were at that financial institution, and you could share 3 pieces of advice with yourself, with your younger self, what would you say to that younger Darryl?
I would just tell him to quit. Quit your job because you're wasting 8 years of your life.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I learned a lot in terms of like money management.
Right.
But I mean, I could have used that to actually, focus on having fun.
Okay.
Because it was through having fun and enjoying life that really put me to where I am today.
Awesome. Awesome. So a lot of people say, find your passion, follow your passion, go for your goals, et cetera, et cetera. But the younger generation, when you're 15, 16, 18 years old, when you go into college, everybody tells you, do this, go for the money. But you're saying, focus on having fun, focus on being productive and following your passion that way. How do you transmit that to a generation where they're being pushed by social media, by the flashy bling bling society to just show off the material things?
I think that's a very hard challenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. I don't really even know how I can do that. It's almost like you need to make that kind of mistake as a young, person. And I went through that, right? I mean, I spent a lot of my money, right? Yes. I spent a lot of my money to look like I was successful.
Right.
But at some point, you start realizing it's like you could make $90,000 a year at a 24-year-old kid.
Right.
and yet you're miserable.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
And then you start enduring that for the next 5 years.
Right.
And then for some reason, I had the guts to quit that job.
Right.
And I was happy being poor than when I was having that job.
Really?
And
you
then,
were more content. And it developed into this opportunity that you pursued.
Yeah.
And now you're happier.
Yeah.
Happier than you were before.
And I've picked up that
Mentality.
I don't ask my CFO how much money the company has. Yeah. I literally I don't spend money.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you, Darryl, for this opportunity to interview you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and to share with the audience, with myself, about action drones and the history of it and the future of it and what you see happening to this industry.
Of course.
Thank you so much. To our audience, thank you for watching another episode of Success Innovation. We will see you next time. My name is Lázaro Herrera and Darryl Anunciado. Have a wonderful time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. In this episode, I definitely enjoyed talking and interviewing Darryl Anunciado. I enjoyed learning about the beginnings of Action Drone, how Darryl admires Walt Disney, and how he would like to shadow him if he could travel back in time. I also enjoyed learning about how he almost burnt down his house, but what he did and how his wife was supportive of him starting a brand new business. I hope you also enjoyed this episode, and if you did enjoy it, please also share with somebody else that could benefit from listening to those comments by Darryl and the advice that he provides to everybody. I hope you register and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Please also connect with Darryl Anunciado via LinkedIn and his social medias. Please look at the description below to connect with Darryl. I hope you join me again with the next fantastic episode of Success Innovation. I look forward to talking and interviewing another wonderful individual. See you next time. Lázaro.